My God, I hate drugs.
Breaking news at this hour, the Supreme Court, sitting as a presidential electoral tribunal, releases a copy of its resolution on the poll protest of former vice presidential candidate Bongbong Marcos against Vice President Leni Robredo. Our justice correspondent, Anjo Alemario, joins us on the phone. Anjo, what does the resolution state?
Well, Maya, there's a big question on who really won in the recount, revision, and appreciation of ballots in the three pilot provinces of former Senator Bongbong Marcos. And the Presidential Electoral Tribunal answers it clearly. Now, based on the final tally, Vice President Leni Robredo maintained and even increased her lead against Marcos by 15,093 votes. But the tribunal says parties should comment first before it makes a ruling on the effects of the revision and appreciation of ballots. It also requires Marcos and Robredo to provide their position on the third cause of action, which is the annulment of votes in three Mindanao provinces as part of due process. But for Justices Antonio Carpio and Alfredo Benjamin Caguioa, Marcos's poll protest should have ended the minute he failed to prove his case in his three pilot provinces. Carpio says to allow Marcos to designate more than three pilot provinces, as he now demands, is to change the rules in the middle of the proceedings to accommodate him. He argues Marcos's third cause of action also requires revision and recount of ballots. So if any or all of these provinces best demonstrate fraud or irregularities, specifically terrorism, as alleged in his petition, he should have included this in his pilot provinces. For Caguioa, asking the parties to comment is a failure to terminate and dispose the election protest in a just, speedy, and expeditious manner when a clear ground exists for its dismissal. As for the increased lead of Robredo against Marcos, Caguioa says numbers do not hold any feelings or political leanings and that numbers do not lie. He says when the numbers reveal a definite conclusion, the tribunal would do a disservice to the public and the nation not to heed the conclusion they provide. Caguioa points out Marcos has only himself to blame as the results in his pilot provinces only lead to one conclusion, the dismissal of his protest. Mai?
Thank you, Anjo Alemario there reporting. The camp of Vice President Leni Robredo welcoming the dissenting opinion of Associate Justice Benjamin Caguioa. Caguioa is the tribunal's member in charge who oversaw the recount of ballots in Iloilo, Camarines Sur, and Negros Oriental, which Bongbong Marcos identified as areas with questionable election results. In a statement, lawyer Bernadette Sardillo says Caguioa only affirmed their position that Robredo won in the provinces fair and square, contrary to the allegations of Marcos. Sardillo adds this only proves that Robredo did win the May 2016 elections as well as the vote recount. She also says Marcos should just respect the decision of the Filipino people. CNN Philippines is reaching out to Marcos and his camp for comment, but they have yet to respond. Resigned PNP Chief General Oscar Albayalde is liable in the irregular 2013 anti-drug operation in Mexico, Pampanga. That's according to the draft report of the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee on the Ninja Cops controversy. Our George Cahiles tells us Committee Chairman Richard Gordon is confident other senators will approve the draft report.
Lahat sila, Albayalde, Baloyo, the other people in the group na nag-raid dyan are guilty, I'm not saying guilty, of malfeasance.
That's how Senate Blue Ribbon Committee Chairman Richard Gordon summarized their findings on the Ninja Cops issue. Guilty. Gordon says the flawed 2013 Mexico Pampanga anti-drugs operation was former PNP Chief General Oscar Albayalde's operation. Albayalde was then the Pampanga Police Chief when 13 of his men, led by then Superintendent Rodney Baloyo, staged an operation on November 29, 2013. Allegedly, the team failed to declare all the pieces of evidence that they recovered, recycled around 160 kilos of shabu, and presented and charged a foreign national who was not the one they arrested that day.
If he had investigated his own men, if he had punished them outright, if he had recommended dismissal, suspension, then there would have been something that we can talk about in terms on his behalf. He did not.
In a draft committee report, Gordon says Albayalde, being the provincial director, may face drug, graft and corruption and negligence charges.
November 23, nakasulat dyan na sinabi sa kanya na merong operation, merong nag-ooperate ng drugs doon. November 29, they conducted the raid. So that means, nagre-report sa kanya. After that, wala nang papel tungkol kay General Albayalde. Pinoteksyon na niya yung mga pao niya. That is his undoing.
Baloy and 12 other policemen, meanwhile, may also face drug charges, as well as charges for evidence planting, robbery, and unlawful arrest. But Gordon clarifies filing charges is not their job as senators. He says the ball is now in the hands of the Ombudsman and the Justice Department. Currently, there's no criminal nor administrative charge filed against Albayalde. But as for the 13 policemen, the DOJ is now reviewing their criminal liabilities, while the PNP Internal Affairs Service will file new administrative charges against them. On Thursday, the National Police Commission says it's up to the President if Albayalde must be charged based on the case review that they are doing. Albayalde stepped down as PNP chief on Monday, less than a month before he retires, amidst the Ninja Cops issue.
We're not here to to come up with a resolution that would lead to the filing of cases, unless, again, directed by the President.
May administrative charge yan. It will, because may fines pa yan eh. Kaya yung sakali yung kanyang retirement, maaabot pa yan.
Gordon is confident senators will support and sign his draft report on the Ninja Cops issue. George Cahiles, CNN Philippines.
Albayalde has repeatedly denied the allegations hurled against him. Addressing police officials during Monday's flag ceremony, Albayalde spoke about the issue.
In light of those circumstances, the charges before the Senate and the testimonies given were apparently inspired by the publicity which has accompanied the Senate investigation.
Albayalde has also said he is ready to face any investigation and will file charges against his accusers. President Rodrigo Duterte warning the so-called Ninja Cops. In a speech last night, President Duterte said he can be evil like them. Here's the president in his own words.
Mga gangster kayo. Yun o, kayong mga ninja, kayong mga hold-upper, kayong mga drug poser, akala ninyo kayo lang ang matigas because you think that you have a monopoly of evil in this country. I can be evil like you and more than if I want to be.
This visit marks the 70th year since the establishment of diplomatic ties between India and the Philippines. Both President Rodrigo Duterte and Indian President Ram Nath Kovind are hoping relations only become stronger. To help make this happen, 4 agreements were signed. These are expected to boost cooperation in the areas of tourism, science and technology, maritime security, and cultural exchange. In their meeting, the two leaders talked about a wide range of the issues, including their shared problem of terrorism and the need to enhance security cooperation. They also discussed the BPO sector. President Duterte said both countries should cooperate more so that both nations complement each other in this industry. President Duterte thanked India for helping rebuild Marawi. President Kovind, for his part, made sure to express his sympathies to the victims of the latest earthquake to hit Mindanao.
As countries strategically located in the Pacific and Indian Oceans, we affirm our shared interest to protect our maritime commons and advance the rule of law in our maritime domains. We agreed also to continue working together to fight terrorism and violent extremism and other transboundary threats.
I convey my deepest condolences on the loss of life caused by the earthquake in Mindanao and wish a speedy recovery to those affected. India has been the target of cross-border terrorism for decades. We committed to work closely to defeat and eliminate terrorism in all its forms and manifestations.
Presidential Electoral Tribunal finally releases its resolution on former vice presidential candidate Bongbong Marcos's vote recount petition. The resolution shows Vice President Leni Robredo even widens her lead by more than 15,000. Robredo's camp says Justice Benjamin Kagiwa's dissenting opinion only affirms their position that she won in the 3 pilot provinces fair and square. And they add this only proves that Robredo did win the May 26 elections or May 2016 elections, and that Marcos should just respect the decision of Filipino voters. Marcos's lawyer Vic Rodriguez points out the Electoral Tribunal voted 11-2, junking the opinions of Kagiwa and Antonio Carpio, saying the majority found the result of the vote recount, quote, outrageous. Rodriguez adds this only confirms their suspicion that Robredo's claim of what they say is a fake victory was, quote, a product of advanced information she's been receiving all along through a highly placed deep throat, unquote. Several parts of Mindanao still reeling from the damage caused by the magnitude 6.3 quake that hit North Cotabato Wednesday evening. A state of calamity has been declared in the town of Magsaysay in Davao del Sur, one of the badly hit areas. Our Carolyn Bongkin reports.
This is what we saw when we drove through the remote parts of Magsaysay, Davao del Sur. One damaged house after another, with either cracked walls, collapsed roofs, or beams that are barely holding what's left of the structure. We also passed by 2 damaged churches. This house, like 200 others, are inhabitable. All are lightly built, while another 600 are partially damaged. In Barangay Malawanit, the strong earthquake took a huge portion of the hill. The big cracks renew residents' fear of another landslide. A few meters away, Arjen Abondo and her 9-month-old son were buried in the landslide shortly after Wednesday's earthquake. Rescuers found their bodies in a tight embrace.
Hindi ko matanggap yung nangyari sa kanila. Kasi sa bata pa siya, ayaw ko sanang mangyari sa kanya. Pero ano talaga sa Panginoon siguro.
Many residents fear they might not survive another earthquake, so they chose to stay under the trees or in makeshift shelters like these.
Dagko ang mga bangag sa balay, dili na pwede puyan. Kuan wala pa may order ang gobyerno nga ibalhin mi. Ang order nila nga gikan mi didto diri lang sa mi magkuan kay layo sa landslide.
Sobrang hirap, ma'am. Hindi talaga mapalawa, nagsasalita lang. Kung nangyari ang tahidya, wala lang kaming tulog buong gabi. Kagabi. Siyempre kapag may sakit siya, tapos hindi mo alam kung anong gagawin mo kasi yung lahat ng gamit nasa bahay namin.
Feli Sugal says she will never go back to her house beside the creek.
Tabo na sa yuta, anak ko, ma'am.
She says the soil almost swallowed her son. Feli's family was running in panic when they felt the ground shaking. Next thing she saw, her son was almost buried in this hole, his hands grasping the unstable ground while crying for help. Magsaysay Mayor Arthur Davin says they will prepare a relocation site.
Dito na yung taga-NHA at saka other agencies. No? Yung lugar na hindi safe, talagang i-relocate na natin sila to a safer place para hindi na maulit. Ano? Yun ang medyo malaki-laki ang pondo na kailangan.
The town is already in a state of calamity, so the local government could access its calamity fund for rehabilitation. The local government is trying to reach everyone in need. But rebuilding will definitely take time, as even the municipal hall suffered damage. The earthquake left an estimated 200 million peso damage, and the figures may still rise as officials continue to assess the situation here. Carolyn Bongkin, CNN Philippines, Davao del Sur.
It's back to work for government employees in some earthquake-hit areas in North Cotabato. Disaster officials in Tulunan, Mlang, Makilala, and Cadabawan City have announced that government offices resumed work today while classes remain suspended. Classes and work in other towns are back to normal. Meanwhile, officials say thousands of residents in Tulunan need financial assistance for the repair and reconstruction of their damaged houses. In Barangay Paraiso, power and water supply were cut off. The barangay hall, birthing center, daycare center, and a chapel were totally damaged. Clearing operations for the landslide-affected areas are ongoing. The Agriculture Department confirms pigs in parts of Nueva Ecija and Cavite tested positive for African swine fever. The agency says the virus affected hogs in Dasmariñas City, Cavite, and Palayan City in Nueva Ecija. Cavite Governor John Vic Remulla clarifies only Barangay Emmanuel Bergado and Salawag tested positive in Dasmariñas. Agriculture Secretary William Dar has just declared 4 areas in Quezon City free of African swine fever, but authorities are ramping up efforts even more to stop the spread of the virus. Dar says authorities will go after hog raisers not practicing proper containment protocols.
Now, the Department of Justice, as part of the cabinet decision, will now lead in bringing these farmers, these hog raisers to court kung hindi sila sa batas. This is not the time to take advantage of the situation. Let's not transport hogs galing dun sa affected areas.
Pork products from Luzon continue to be confiscated in the provinces despite a Department of Interior and local government circular ordering the lifting of the pork ban. Personnel from the African Swine Fever Task Force in Negros Occidental seized more than 52,000 pieces of siopaw worth 1.1 million pesos on Wednesday at the Bacolod City Port. Officials said the shipment came from Cebu. However, documents show the products were made in Luzon. Several provinces are banning processed pork products from Luzon due to the spread of swine fever on the island. Negros Occidental officials vow to continue the pork ban to protect the 6 billion peso swine industry of the province, even if it defies the Interior Department's order to lift the ban. For their part, Cebu authorities are tracing how the siopaw from Luzon got into the province before it reached Bacolod. Provincial veterinarian Rose Vincoy says the shipment may have come through private ports which are less monitored. All set for the 75th Leyte landing commemorations this weekend. Before the main celebration on Sunday, there will be a commemoration of the Suluan raid, which marks the beginning of the battle in Leyte Gulf. Yesterday, living World War II veterans and their children were given honors. More will be honored in ceremonies at the Price Mansion in Tacloban City and at the MacArthur Shrine in Palot Town.